Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of RPG Radio. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of Armored Core 6, I've got a build for you with the Stun Baton and the Therapist, which is the Stun Bomb Launcher, and we're all about some status effects with this build. It's called Electric Discharge in Armored Core 6, and if you are at all familiar with bleeding in any of the other FromSoft or Dark Souls games, it basically works the same way. So we'll talk about that, but I do want to share this build with everybody because it is ridiculously fun and stupidly strong in the right situations. There are a couple things that make it tough to do, but we'll talk about that too. Before we get into the build specs though, just remember we're going to put this build through the paces with a couple of different fights. Namely, we're going to start off with the Sea Spider being one of the most frustrating and difficult bosses in the early parts of the game. Then we're going to move up to the HCs and the LC in the Prevent Corporate Salvage of PCA Tech mission. It's a stupid sounding mission, but it is incredibly challenging depending on your build because the HCs and the LCs are ridiculously annoying machines. And then we're going to cap it all off with the PCA Cataphract weapon, which may actually take the cake for the most unbelievably, ridiculously monotonous and annoying boss in the game. For me, for now, anyway. It wasn't on my first playthrough with my pile bunker, but things are definitely much different when you are, when you're reducing your damage from one big hit to lots of small consecutive hits. So, that being said, let's not waste any more time since the Sea Spider has landed and is ready to show us all his big shiny red lasers and his big stupid pinecone form on top of all that. The first thing I want to mention on this build is that it does use a shotgun, but it doesn't use the Zimmermans. There's a reason for that, and that is because the Zimmermans are currently too cool for me to be seen with. I can only play with not cool, popular, and top tier stuff, and that is the reason that we're using the Haldeman. Don't forget though, the Haldeman does have a shorter reload time, which means its attack speed is going to be faster. You can fire off the Haldeman quicker than you can fire off the Zimmerman. I think it's 1.3 seconds, whereas the Zimmerman is 2 seconds. So, that being said, since we're only using a single shotgun, I like that rate of fire, and we're only sacrificing, half the stagger damage, and we have about 2/3 of the damage of the Zimmerman. So, ultimately, I think these guns, or the Haldeman in and of itself as a shotgun, is super useful, super effective. Just an all-around good guy that doesn't get enough attention because his older brother is way too popular and should probably, take a seat at some point. But let's not detour too hard. The shotgun out of the way, let's talk about the Stun Baton and the Stun Bomb Launcher. These two weapons are going to combine to give you access to one of the few status effects in the game, and that is called Electric Discharge. Electric Discharge works a lot of the way that Bleed does in Dark Souls games, and that is to say you're going to whack a person quite a few times, you're going to build up this status meter on their health bar, and once you achieve maximum discharge with that, it is going to deal a big chunk of damage to them. And when I say big chunk, I mean think probably 3 times the amount of damage that has been done in the time it takes for you to put that meter into them. So that's probably not a good description, just remember it's a big boy. This build likes to go in melee a lot. It likes to get in, it likes to get out, it likes to hit and run, and when things have finally chained all together completely, it results in a very big payoff and very big damage when you were probably not expecting it. It would be nice if there was some sort of meter to tell you how close you are to that discharge completion, but hindsight is 20/20. Anyway, Captain Pinecone is up in the air. He's doing all of the things that make him annoying and frustrating by firing missiles after missiles after missiles and waiting for his opportune time to make the floor lava and We're not going to fall for that because we have got big jumpy legs, we have got a lot of gear that will keep us in the air for a long time, and ultimately we're just going to give him the beaten stick on down to the ground and then suppress the memory of ever having to fight this stupid pinecone spider of death in the first place. So let's move on to some bosses that are even more frustrating, but magically enough this build will deal with incredibly well. In my previous video, I tried to use the Bad Cook and an explosive-centered build to deal with the HCs and the LCs in this mission, and that was incredibly difficult. Mainly because the HC is a melee-focused machine, and it really likes to use big, sweeping melee attacks that cover everything. If you don't have the right kind of dodge, those boys can literally tear you up like you just got married. One of the more forgiving parts of this fight, though, is that the HC is sitting in basically a repair port. He is just over there waiting for you if you decide to go the path to the left. Path to the left is the HC, path to the right is the LCs, but the left side gives you a very good opportunity to just whip out your grenade cannon, the Earshot. Now, the Earshot is the uncool older brother of the Songbirds. The Songbirds are everybody's favorite grenade launcher that fires off two big boys, does a lot of stagger damage, and you can basically rock two of those throughout the entire game and make things really easy. If you're into that type of playstyle, that's good for you. I just, wouldn't tell anybody about it, right? It could just be me, but anytime somebody tells me that they used broken weapon number 1, broken weapon number 2, or broken weapon number 3 to beat the game and had a really easy time, it's a little bit harder for me to take them seriously as a FromSoft player. I mean, if you're not having a bad time for at least 75% of the game, then you're probably not experiencing things the way that, everybody else is. But to each their own. Use whatever weapons you want. I like the Earshot, but it does come with a couple caveats. The Earshot grenade launcher is a single shot big boy, and it does have quite a big blast radius, but the cooldown time on this thing is gross. And as you can see, we're going to go on basically a 13-second cooldown because we missed that shot on an LC that just never stops boosting, while his friend never stops shooting at us. The Earshot does, however, deal a basically full bar of stagger when you hit people with it, so after connecting with a direct hit, they're going into stagger mode, but if you manage to pack them into a corner or up against the wall or the ground, you can unleash a pretty big chunk of stagger damage just from the blast radius. The fact that we trade staggers right there is really upsetting because the mobility on the LCs is ridiculously gross. We're probably going to have to go and find a cheesy spot to hide from this goober so we don't get, crushed by missiles and untargetable or undodgeable garbage just like that. I mean, thank God for the shotgun being able to kick that guy just directly in his teeth as he's trying to move away, but hypermobility MTs who deal ridiculous amounts of damage and come in 3 aren't fun. That mission was actually a first try though, so I mean that feels good. The build went according to plan and did a lot better than my previous build, which is awesome. So it's always a good feeling when stuff comes together like that. Now, this is the tough part of the build. I went and found a mission with a boss in it that was specifically antithetical to what this build can do. And that is ultimately lay down a big chunk of stagger from range, go in for some big damage in melee, and clean things up by staying very close to the enemies that you're targeting. Unfortunately, the cataphract is unbelievably strong because it only has one weak spot, and that weak spot is only in the front of the tank. And I don't know how to tell this to everybody, especially maybe the dev team on this game, but if you only show your face 10% of the time and you just hug walls that I can't go outside of, or you constantly show me your gigantic tank butt crack, I'm not going to enjoy attacking you. That being said, I did smash this boss almost instantaneously on my first playthrough because I was using the pile bunker and some heavy melee spec arms with the docket handguns. I mean, he really did not stand a chance because it's basically just a little MT sitting in the front of a gigantic weapons platform, and staggering them when you get the opportunity is really easy if you can just line it up real quick. If you're not able to do that, you have to stay in front of the tank, which is really difficult because he likes to turn around 180 degrees a whole bunch. And if you want to do some chain melee instead of one big charged up slap in the face, oh well, I don't think that hit me. I disagree. You're gonna have a bad time because he does not stay staggered for long, just like my patience. So we're gonna restart. He doesn't stay staggered long enough for you to get a whole bunch of easy melee damage in with these smaller melee weapons. And when he does come back online, he's just kind of like, you're sitting in the perfect place for me to run you over, which is another of his very unhelpful attacking abilities. So, all that being said, rant about the boss is over for the most part for now. So let's get back. You can get away with a lot when it comes to this build, when it comes to the body parts specifically. But the one thing that you cannot trade is the legs. You're going to want the spring chicken legs because they are not only reverse joint legs, but they are the heaviest reverse joint legs, meaning that you get the most AP out of them. I know everybody goes absolutely nuts for the lightweight builds with the lightweight chicken legs because you get a lot of big quick boosting opportunity on a small frame that is very quick. So obviously speed is highly addictive, but when you get the spring chickens, you're basically putting on the booty shorts that say, hey, look upon my thunder thighs and despair. Not only do reverse joint legs come with a lot of good kick with our assault boost kick, they are incredibly good for vertically focused gameplay. Armored Core 6 wants you to use that Z-axis, or it would be the Y-axis, sorry. Math is hard to remember and college is even more of a blur. But the Y-axis is important for the Armored Core 6 developers. They want you to go up into the air, they want you to be able to boost and hang out up there, but when it comes to the chicken legs, nothing is going to get you vertical faster than these crazy reverse joint things. You put these on, and the common theme among them is that your jump ability goes up through the roof. So couple that with a booster that has even remotely decent vertical thrust, and you can stay up there for a pretty good chunk of time. On top of that, your reverse legs have the best quick boost distance of any leg in the game. So when you equip the reverse joint legs, your quick boosts are going to dash you further in whatever direction you decide, and that means that you are typically going to get further out of danger. It is pretty gross just how good these legs work with your quick boosting ability and your vertical hop. This is the boss putting his face into an unbreakable wall so that I can't shoot it, and he's just wasting my time with all of his undodgeable garbage. So yes, I'm going to restart because I hate that, and that is exactly the kind of cheese that makes me want to rip all of my mustache hair out one at a time. That being said though, I'm showing you plenty of my failures with this boss because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. He is beatable, this build does work against it, it just takes a little bit of learning. Making sure that you're getting kicks off in his face when possible, and aiming the Earshot almost perfectly when he sits still to line up front facing on you is really, really important. If you hit an Earshot on him just like that while you're up close and personal, you get knocked back because his big dumb hitbox is so large and his tiny little hurtbox is so small. It's not a fun boss. It's not. But the cheesier they are, the more street cred there is for killing them. I don't know. Is this even a hard boss for people? Is it just me? Is it just this build that was having a bad time? Did everybody else just whip out the songbirds and the Zimmermans and go to town on his grandma in front of the whole family? I don't know. Did I say I was done ranting? I'm definitely not. That's not something that is ever going to change on this channel. You're welcome. But let's talk more about the build, because there is one final piece that is very, very good, and I don't know if I would have recognized it if I didn't just go down and sit in the garage and read stats for a decent chunk of time. The P06 SPD booster, or I'm just going to call them Speed for short, are incredibly good for being incredibly balanced, and it is really crazy just how many good stats are in this booster over all of the other ones. If there were an award for best all-around booster, I think the Speed would definitely get it. This booster in particular has the third shortest quick boost reload time, which is pretty insane because the Gills has 0.3. But basically 0.3 is you're going to be zipping all over the place quick boosting like you're in, Gundam Wing and you're in a lightsaber duel. But the speed boosters have a 0.5. After 0.5, basically all the other boosters just get longer and longer. Everything after that quick boost is just going to be bigger and worse. Maybe not necessarily worse. I mean, every build has, or every part has trade-offs, but the Speed all around just has better stats than more than half of the other boosters as a whole. So there are some boosters that are going to have much better quick boost duration, some that are going to have much better upward thrust, some that are going to have better energy consumption or maybe melee attack thrust, but there aren't going to be many. And the Speed is just kind of sitting with his bronze medal saying, I could take any of you guys if I really wanted to, but I'm comfortable here, so this is where I'm going to stay. And the last part I want to mention is the Sentai, and that's going to be the generator. And this thing couples incredibly well with the speed boosters and the relative lack of energy consumption coming out of this build. The Sentai has a very, very high energy output, meaning the bar itself is very big. The energy supply recovery, meaning the recovery of energy right after you start using it with your build, is relatively quick. So when you use a quick boost in this build, it does not take very, very long for the generator to start kicking that energy back to you. The only thing that this generator is really not great at is the basically when your generator fails and you need to recover. You need a big boost of energy coming back to you after the depletion of your generator. Just run face first into that wall again, but he eats a full grenade to the face as well as my feet, so I hope you like Toe Jam Earl. Anyway, the generator is, it's very good in all of the base stats. The one that probably a lot of people sleep on is that energy post-supply energy recovery. That one is basically built for ACs who run out of energy really fast, and it is super prevalent in the coral generators because you use a lot of energy really quick. But after that, they give you basically your entire energy bar back after it's been fully depleted. So you're just supposed to throw away all of your energy because your generator is going to say, hey, sorry about that, here's the whole bar right back for you. But yeah, this is counter to that. It doesn't have a whole lot in the way of recovery from full depletion, but to be honest with you, I don't run out of full energy super often with this build, and it is really, really ridiculously super awesome fun time stuff. So, all that being said, those are all the parts that I think are very, very important to this build. All of the weapons are very important to how you play. The core, the head, and the arms on this big boy are, I think they're interchangeable. As long as your weight is low enough that you have a decent speed, I think you can make do. So don't fret much about the extra pieces in this build. They're kind of up to your aesthetic decision, and I really don't want to distract too hard from the absolute karmic justice. But it never, ever ceases to be a good time when the boss finally dies to something that you built with your own two hands that you're feeling pretty proud of. Don't forget to desecrate the body at the end of all things, just to assert your dominance on the robot that is certainly not on enough to care anymore. But that's it for this video, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks for sitting through the attempts at the end. I'll catch you all next time.